today we talk about detect bad intent early to stop downstream fraud. I think it's a topic which is impacting all of us. And we have two great experts here today. We have Andrew from DataDome and we have Dan from PayPal. Andrew, please take a minute and give just a short background about who are you, what are you doing, that the audience knows you a little bit better. You're on mute right now, Andrew.
Yeah, I've been with DataDome for close to 3 years now. I've been in cybersecurity and telecom for over 15 to 20 years. So I've seen a lot, and it's always exciting times, and things continue to evolve, and we're going to see more of that today.
Thanks, Andrew, for being here today. Dan, your turn.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan. I've been in the cybersecurity industry for the past 18 years or so. Been with PayPal for the past 10 years. I'm driving the advanced cybersecurity solutions responsible for bot protection, edge protection, DDoS protection, and all the internal tooling that is supporting the business from cybersecurity perspective. Happy to be here, Andrew and Ronald.
Perfect. Dan, thanks for being here today. Before we go into the first type of discussion, I would like to start with a poll, which will lead into our first part of the discussion. Because again, we talk about detecting the bad actors very early to really stop the downstream fraud. And that's why the question is coming up for all of you: where does your fraud detection currently begin? I think that's a good point to understand, and also we can maybe take some insights from your response into our discussion. So let's get started and trying to understand how early should fraud detection begin in the customer journey. Maybe Andrew can start here, maybe sharing your point of view.
Yeah, just watching the poll results come in, I think there's a fair amount of fraud that happens post-purchase, right? Refund fraud and those kind of events. But, there's a large amount of fraud that begins, as soon as the user hits the website, right? And, it's really important to, start to evaluate all of the signals that you receive as a merchant from the very beginning of the buyer journey. What we see is that a lot of times there's automated bots that hit login and registration pages. They're scanning for vulnerabilities or doing reconnaissance on the website or the APIs. They're hitting the payment endpoints with carding attacks to see if there's cards that they can either resell or use in a fraudulent way. So it really runs the gamut from the beginning of the process, from account creation, registration, every signal event and endpoint, all the way through payment and post-transaction. So I think once there's successful hits, the fraud really begins in earnest, right? So there's value tied to those user accounts that are taken over. There's things like promo abuse and loyalty fraud from the stored points or miles. There's theft of PII information, payment fraud from the stolen card use, and so on. So what's really important to take away that you need a very proactive approach that's very focused early in the buyer journey, using AI detection for those automated attacks.
And if I may add, Andrew, the adversaries are smart. They will try every way for them to step in and to get what they want. Their main objective is not just, yes, it's fraud and leverage money and gain money. And on top of that, they will leverage every step that they can, even if it's a traffic level, if if they want to take down the site using a high volume of traffic that is denying a service, if they want to create accounts just to validate accounts, that's also an option. Login is for credential staffing usually. And at purchases is where they want to leverage something that is happening on your website, probably, where they can gain money, either using sending fraud emails or spam emails and things like that. So they have that variety of options that they will leverage for everything they want. And let's keep in mind that they're pretty smart with what they do.
Yeah, I can give you a recent example from one of our customers. It's a leading C2C marketplace. It's got over 100 million users, and they have a huge fraud problem that couldn't be solved with their existing tooling. They were dealing with high bot traffic against their login and registration pages. Some pretty startling statistics. 80% of their traffic was bot traffic, and 33% of their registrations were fake or bot generated. To Dan's point, there's a lot of elite A-team fraudsters out there, and this is what this customer is facing. There's advanced bots, there's complex evasion techniques, and really 24/7 relentless attacks. And what we saw from this customer is that every week there were hundreds of thousands of fake accounts that were being created. So imagine the effort it took to search and destroy those fake accounts after the fact. They would also create sleeper accounts that they'd light up later after the detection from real time was not there. So they're very creative on their techniques for evading these kinds of things. And how did that lead to fraud? Essentially, all these fake accounts and fake profiles, they were selling counterfeit goods, phantom goods to real users. They disappeared, and then the real users were left holding the bag. They phished users for their PII or card information. They spammed users and so forth. And that's the fraud that happened. It resulted in a lot of lost revenue, costs from chargebacks. The team was running around and exhausted and drained. It was a bad user experience. So those are the kinds of effects that you face when dealing with that kind of malicious activity that happens so early in the user journey.
And I think the poll which we have done with the audience reflects this. I think the majority of the audience sees it's important to start early in the process. Again, depends on the type of business you are in. Again, if you have promotional views or any kind of bots or maybe affiliate fraud or something similar, so again, will drive the way how you detect the fraud on your platform. But maybe looking at PayPal, I mean, PayPal is for a long time in the business, and maybe Dan can share a little bit what has PayPal learned by shifting the fraud defense upstream, and also how is PayPal using DataDome. I think again, it's also interesting getting from a different angle. And again, everybody knows PayPal is running on volume, so it's always good to get some perspective what you have learned and can share.
Yes, and maybe to add one more thing, when we look at PayPal, usually when you want to open a bank account, you go and prove yourself, you go physically to the bank account, open that bank. The benefit people have which is also a challenge we are facing, is you don't have to come physically to a site to register or to open an account. You do that online. I know that nowadays we are doing more online, but PayPal is very dominant across the board by having that option available. And I will start with how we are integrated a little bit, and then go to the learning experience. The way we are integrated with DataDome is at the CDN level, at the edge. So it's outside of the PayPal infrastructure. And the reason for that, we wanted to have everything being closer to the adversary. So we are not leveraging the PayPal compute system infrastructure to do all of that and to stop all of that traffic. We have the different controls, but the bot control, this is the area where we wanted to push outside, closer to the adversary. And we are protecting key entry points. We are in the process of onboarding more and more to DataDome to protect more entry points. You were mentioning login, payment, and also account creation. These are the kind of entry points we are also onboarding to DataDome. And the reason is to have that real-time scoring out there and not just internally. Some of the learning experience we've been having from that integration is, if you imagine a funnel, we want to have at the top of the funnel to stop the vast majority of the automated and the noise from coming in. And just imagine that if we have it one layer down, then we need to deal with that noise one layer down. And that level is where we clean a lot of traffic, but then the next one is seeing less traffic and less bot and less abusers and needing to act against those. But when we push it up, we're making the rest of the layers smarter, and they see a cleaner view and are able to differentiate between the outliers and the legitimate and benign traffic coming in and make their models smarter. That with respect to that cleaner funnel closer to the adversary, and on top of everything, we want to make sure that our customers are not experiencing bad or challenges that they shouldn't. So, for example, if we have a bad detection or a model, we might also challenge legitimate customers, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. And if we do that outside, and leveraging DataDome capabilities, we are seeing less and less, and the models are learning that fairly quick. And we also get their support 24/7. The last thing is the reduction of costs. By doing that, we are not overwhelming all of that traffic with the infrastructure. We're doing that outside, and the cost of the infrastructure is going down, and also the cost of the services we get from others is also going down. By the way, if you have any questions, feel free to put them on the chat. We can take them afterwards.
Yeah, Dan, you raised a lot of good points there, and just to double click on one of them, protecting against fraud doesn't have to come at the expense of a good user experience. And so, our architecture is crafted to ensure that, providing the protection with kind of a seamless user experience. We push, a lot of that decisioning out to the edge. We have a number of global POPs, 30 plus global POPs, so that we can respond within, less than 2 milliseconds in real time to every request every time. So that's super important. We don't want to mess with the user experience, because for our customers, that's paramount.
Sure. I mean, customer service or customer experience is king. And also, we have seen there are a few steps. Potential customer comes first time to a page, customer creates an account. But of course, there are also ATOs where someone takes over a good account. Maybe here a question, what are new tactics are used to bypass any kind of defense at the login or registration points with ATO attempts? Again, you mentioned before, I think, Andrew, maybe an account has been created, not used for a while, or it was a phishing attack, someone got the credentials, now takes over the good account. So what are maybe here some points which we can share with the audience where you have seen something which is maybe new or upcoming type of tactics?
Yeah, I mean, there's almost a bad news story where it comes from here, because these fraudsters are very sophisticated, and they're creating more and more sophisticated bots. And there's known detection techniques out there, and they're trying to reverse engineer and evade them. But some of the things that we see outside of the realm of AI specifically is distributed IPs, right? No sane fraudster right now is using a limited number of IPs to hit a website. It's all using residential proxies, very distributed, sometimes one IP per request, and then they get rotated. So there's other mechanisms as well. There are things like very short, bursty attacks, low and slow attacks that kind of go under the radar screen of a lot of security tools. There's CAPTCHA farms that get handoffs, right? A lot of those used to be human, right? So they have a bunch of humans somewhere solving the CAPTCHAs and handing it back off to the fraudsters. Now a lot of that is AI, right? It's 1/3 of the cost and much faster using AI versus humans now. So they're relying very heavily on those ML models to automatically pass CAPTCHAs these days. And what we're seeing with the research is that AI can solve CAPTCHAs much better than humans now. So there has to be other detection and response mechanisms to ensure the security. And there's also a ton of open source tooling out there, browser automation tools such as Puppeteer, Stealth, and Playwright that give a lot of tools for the fraudsters to use to evade detection.
Mm-hmm. I think okay, maybe
to add to that as well, from past experience, if 10 years ago we used to see single-digit thousands of IPs, it becomes to be millions. If we used to be seeing them coming from one user agent or one characteristic that is very simple, they got sophisticated. And like Andrew said, they are now rotating IPs after each request. They will change some of the elements within the user agent to meet something similar, and they do that for every request differently. So because the HTTP protocol is stateless, so they can do that separately and change that very frequent by millions of sources, millions of IPs, and more. So that's the reason why we also have to adjust and to be also sophisticated with how we approach it.
I just want to pick one comment which we have from our audience, from Brianna. I think it's an interesting point. Customer friction is customer protection, but again, a lot of people now debating, do we need real-time, or if we have a delay of 2 seconds, is this good enough? Because then we have some time of adding more layers of protection. I think that's a general debate in the industry. Do we need real-time payments, which are real-time, or can we delay it for a few seconds? And would it really break the customer experience if a payment arrives in 30 seconds instead of real time? I think that's a general, very good point, where I guess every business needs to find the right balance to please the customer, but still having enough time to really run the right checks. Also, Andrew prepared a demo, which also gives some good insights how attacks are happening right now and how they can be detected. So we're going to switch to a video which Andrew has pre-recorded, and it's your stage, Andrew, to give the audience really good insights and what is happening nowadays.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, we had wanted to do this live, but there's so many moving parts. We were really worried about the demo effect here, so we did record a video, which we'll run through. We wanted to show you, though, a real-time simulation of an ATO attack and how an AI-based defense can stop that. We're showing two different techniques, one that's more out of the box. It's using one of those open source tools that I mentioned for attackers called OpenBullet. And there's another more sophisticated technique that uses custom scripting. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started here. The website that we're protecting, from this credentials attack is a site called CredexaPay. The goal of the fraudster here is to test whether they can successfully gain access to the financial website. And one of the tools we're using today is OpenBullet 2. The target, CredexaPay, is protected by DataDome, but currently in open monitoring mode. Overall threats are being updated in real time as the traffic flows through the system, as you can see here. So to begin the attack, we're going to start a job that runs around 786 credentials that are gathered from public sources. We're looking to see if any of these credentials lead to successful logins. And as the job runs, you'll start to see successful login attempts. These reflect matches between the source credentials and real user accounts on CredexaPay. And these are successful login attempts, as you can see here in the logs in the tool. We're going to switch over to the real-time DataDome monitoring page. You can observe the traffic that's originating in south of France and directed toward the London POP. The event logs below, scrolling here, show particular events that are numerous yellow alerts, which indicate credential stuffing activity. In parallel, we can run scripts that simulate attackers generating and spawning web browsers to automate attacks and send malicious requests targeting the site. These scripts generate traffic that flows to the same location. As the traffic continues, we're seeing other different types of threats that emerge. There's fake account creation, there's scraping activities. These have different color codes, as you can see in the legend, for those threats. And at this point, we're going to enter the DataDome management UI, which you can see here. We'll navigate to the protection and endpoints page. And as part of this demo, we've already taken the step to turn on protection for these specific endpoints, as shown on the screen here. And we're going to go back to the spawn browsers in the OpenBullet tool. You see they are beginning to shut down. And the number of banned events quickly ramps up as our bot protection is kicked in. While the attack tool and script continue trying to hit CredexaPay, our AI-based protection system adapts in real time and stops these attempts. You can see the browsers here aren't reaching CredexaPay anymore. And in the tool, you can see that the number of ATO hits is declining fast. Returning to the real-time dashboard, the traffic is still visible, but it's now effectively blocked. You can see a breakdown of the total threats on the left-hand side here, and legitimate requests in the past 30 minutes. Only a small number of requests were not legitimate. There's a clear spike in attack traffic. But thanks to DataDome, almost none of that is getting through now. And CredexaPay is still available, up, operational, and unaffected. And if we go back to OpenBullet, the tool is now effectively frozen. It's completed about 29% of its run before we enabled the protection. So the attack was blocked mid-run, but the browsers that were attempting the attack are now inactive, as you can see here, and not able to complete. They're kind of stuck in a sort of stasis. They're continuing to try and make attempts, but making no progress. And if we go back to OpenBullet, it's fully frozen. All the error messages have stopped scrolling. The mitigation is fully in place, as you can see. So going back to the threat overview, DataDome is no longer detecting any active attack traffic. We've blocked the requests already. And under the credential stuffing, we can see the spike in attacks and how they were swiftly mitigated at this point. So this quick response from DataDome effectively neutralized the threat. We cleaned up the environment in real time. There's no manual intervention from the team. And going back to Open Bullet, we continue to be fully stuck. The fraudsters have failed. And if we go to the CredexaPay site, it's now fully secured. So that kind of shows, a ATO simulation using an open source tool that's very common with fraudsters. As you can see, it very much takes advantage of the credentials that are out there on the web today from previous data breaches. It's not even talking about, like advanced AI or AI agents, which now is starting to blur traditional detection methods that are focused on, IPs or identity or traditional bot detection methods. So the attackers are leveraging agentic AI to increase the velocity of their attacks, kind of increase the blast radius of fraud. So, we're going to talk about that next, I believe, and it's a really important topic.
Thanks, Andrew, for giving us this demo. Maybe also back to Dan. Any comments or perspective from your side regarding this demo? Is this, from your point of view, a real case, or is it just a demo and that doesn't reflect the reality?
This is not just a demo. These are real cases, and I was also reading some of the chat as well, and I want to comment on a few of them, and I have some notes. But in general, with the fraudsters, they're whatever credential dump they have, using phishing, whatever they do to get these credentials, they will take one company credentials dumping or phishing results. They will take it to the other company as well and use it against all of the other companies, Fortune 500, however, as many as you want, because they know that people are reusing their credentials across multiple sites. So they don't care if it came from PayPal or from other large brand. They will take all of that dump into a single pile and use it separately across all of them. And maybe I want to touch bit to comment on some of the chat comments that I saw here. Friction, customer friction. PayPal, for example, have merchants. They want to have zero friction for customers. They fight for every customer that wants to pay. They want them to pay. They want them to complete the purchase without any friction. And that's the reason why we also measuring someone also wrote here, conversion rates. One of the things we are measuring whenever we onboard something is also the conversion rate and the cooperation with our risk team, the fraud teams as well, to ensure that whatever we do upstream is not significantly impacting downstream results, but the other way around is improving the conversion rate across the board. That's the goal. False positive ratio. This is also a metric we follow. We are measuring what is our false positive ratio at the top of the funnel, and also at the bottom of the funnel, which is the conversion ratio. And I think that very valid comments were raised on the chat that are related to these kind of metric, false positive, conversion ratio, and the friction as a whole.
Thanks, Dan, for this extra comments. Andrew, any other comment before we go to the next topic?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, false positive ratio is super important. It's something that we track very explicitly and transparently on our dashboard. So everybody can see their own false positive ratio. I think what's important is that we have, supervised AI models from our threat team that are constantly going in and understanding what's happening in our customers' environments. We also have unsupervised models. And feedback loops are super important, right? When something isn't going right, we have models that can take that data into account and autocorrect and improve automatically. So, having multiple mechanisms in place, but keeping your eye on the ball in terms of understanding what that metric is, it's super important for almost every customer to reduce their false positive rate. Our false positive rate is, under 0.01%. And like I said, it's something that we track very closely.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. I mean, Andrew already touched the word agentic AI. And we also know it's not about a bot or not. It's not about automated or not. So the question is more, how do we find a good intent? And what is the role of any kind of behavior AI, which is also here the question, how can that be detected? Again, it's a bit of a still undefined area. I think, again, people using different terms as well. But I think it's an interesting topic to maybe have a discussion. We also have a slide prepared for this, very simple slide, but again, gives the idea. Is automation really bad, And again, maybe Andrew can give some more insights here, and then we have one more slide as well prepared here.
Yeah, this is mostly a conversation. I think this is our only slide. If you go to the next one, really to discuss, and this kind of gives you a visual of what's happening with agentic AI now, right? The question is no longer, is it a human or is it a bot? Because humans were always good and bots were always bad, right? Not all bots are bad now with agentic AI, right? There's kind of the green here in the chart, the legitimate user and using a good AI agent. But there's a lot of other use cases out there that merchants and e-commerce companies have to protect against, right? There's legitimate users that have a bad UI AI agent. There's an illegitimate user with a good AI agent and an illegitimate user using a bad AI agent. So now, there's automated traffic that's good and verified, and that's going to help businesses grow and scale. But there's also a lot of automated traffic that's bad now too. So really, the new question is, what is the intent of the request, right? Be it a human or be it in automated bot, right?
But maybe Andrew, maybe you can bring up one example where a website could experience a good AI agent. Again, maybe just to get everybody on the same page. I think you also got a question, and please provide an example. I think maybe not everybody's aware about what is an AI agent or what is a good AI agent and how could that be interacting with different websites. Maybe you can provide one example to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, there's not only AI agents, there's also LLM scrapers, or crawlers, I should say. And what they're doing is they're taking information, be it product information or pricing information or blog information, and making it more readily available to users and customers in ChatGPT, for example, right? So what we've seen is, over the past 30 days, our customers have seen 1 billion requests in open AI traffic. So that's something that businesses may want to encourage because it gives them more visibility to a broader base of customers. But there's certain circumstances where you don't want that pricing information or that product information in the hands of other LLM scrapers, right? These could be competitors that are scraping your website and then automatically updating the pricing on their own page to have a more competitive product. You don't want to let that happen. And what's happening now is a lot of merchants and e-commerce companies, they don't have the visibility, and they certainly don't have the control over any of that traffic. And that traffic, right now is a relatively small percentage of the traffic. For us, we see about a little less than 5% of good bot traffic. There's tons of bad bot traffic as well, of course, but one thing that we've recently enabled right before RSA is a capability to give visibility to our customers of the LLM crawlers as well as agentic AI traffic, and understand the different sources for that. Some of that is known, but a lot of it is not. And so we can categorize that. And then it's not only enough to provide visibility, but it's really important to give our customers control, right? So they can essentially say, I want to allow this traffic if it's a known source that we want to make sure has access to our information or other site information, or we can block it. Or based on performance or user experience, there's other response options as well. So, you can say time box it or rate limit it, so that, we're prioritizing real users, but we want to make sure this can maybe happen, in non-peak or non-promotional time periods. So that's some of the new controls that we're starting to introduce for our customers. I'll just turn it over to Dan and see if he has any comments as well.
Yes, and what you're saying, that it's very much all the different actions in the toolset are available. It's also, if we want to silently send a challenge to the browser to see who is out there, and how sophisticated they can be also with their AI modules, agentic options in their toolsets. This is also exist as part of the toolsets in DataDome to provide that flexibility without increasing or introducing a new friction to the customer as well. So there is also always the balance of how much we challenge or friction versus how much we allow. And this makes our life a bit harder in that aspect. But the tool set and what we have is allowing us to do that gradually, to learn and elevate that over time as we see fit also as a customer. What is it that is having a better false positive ratio or detection ratio? Look at it from two angles, and what is not. And then it's on our side to choose whether to use what. And the last thing, MCP servers and all of that. We are now using MCP and remote MCP servers to create and to automate things, right? What is preventing them from the bad side of the house to create their own MCP servers to leverage that for their purposes? So just a food for thought for everyone. As we go with this.
Yeah, I know that agentic AI is such a new topic that it's a little nebulous. But a couple months ago, OpenAI announced Operator, and one of the demos they showed was a user that was booking travel on TripAdvisor, right? So essentially creating a little tool or script so that if they found a hotel or an airline flight that met their needs in terms of pricing and schedule and whatnot, it could actually go out and find that information and show it to the user, and then ultimately potentially automate those purchases, so it just happens based on certain rule sets. If you take a vacation, which I did last week, you miss out on big announcements. I mean, Microsoft at Build just released agentic AI. Google came out with at their I/O conference recently AI mode in search. So essentially, it's agentic AI, where if you do a search, like you'll have not only the product information in the search results without going to the merchant website, but you now have the option potentially to purchase it directly from those search results. And so you can imagine the implications for risk management and fraud, and not to mention just the overall, customer relationship and user experience that the merchant is, trying to maintain and control. So, all of these changes are happening super rapidly, and they're going to have impacts to risk management and fraud decisioning and other security measures, as mentioned. Agentic AI traffic is really a net new attack vector for fraud. So it's something that the first thing you need is visibility and control over that agentic AI traffic, and that's what we're trying to provide.
I think that opens up a whole new dimension. We talked about the UX and this whole interaction with the customer, but if the customer doesn't really come to your website anymore, just interacts out of a search, again, will open up a lot of discussions for many companies, how to build websites, how to provide information, and how to take the information to make decisions about is it a good or bad intent from this specific session. I also just want to bring up one example from the past. I think when new technology comes up like this, of course, we as fraud people, risk, cybersecurity people, we're always looking into the scary point and trying to see what is ahead of us. I mean, remember a few years back, we talked about IoT, so any kind of intelligent device, and everybody thought, okay, now all your home appliances making orders and making all these e-commerce transactions, and we don't know how we're going to track this and which kind of fraud can happen. Your stored credit cards get used and all this. I think fast forward to today, we didn't see too much of a fraud impact as far I know. And so here in this scenario is also interesting to see if we fast forward 6 months, how much it really impacts different organizations, or how much we can really read the data in a good way to making good and bad decisions. And I just want to open up 2 more polls for the audience to just get some more input how the audience feels about this. So the first one is, what signals do you rely on most to detect fraud? And you can see there are 4 answers. So identity-based, we have behavior signals, a mix of both, or you're not sure because maybe someone different in your team. If you can, please just share your point of view. It's interesting for us. And in parallel, I'm going to open up a second poll. And here the question is, again, back to the Agentic AI topic. How is the organization approaching the emerging threat of Agentic AI in fraud and security? And again, we know not everybody is completely, let's say, fully implemented and fully aligned, but it's a screenshot right now to see how you feel about this. And again, you can see there are also 4 answers: actively implement solutions to detect, mitigate Agentic AI threats, planning, on the radar, maybe in the backlog somewhere, or maybe we're just waiting right now to see how much that will impact our business. Maybe back to Andrew until we get the results. The questions for many companies is always about the business case. I mean, you can hear some buzzwords, but what is maybe a good starting point to understand how much you as a business get impacted of something which looks big and scary, but how can you make it internally a business case if you don't have the numbers right now, that you're losing money on a daily basis, or your customers having a bad experience, maybe going to a different page. So how can you make a case about something which is maybe not tangible right now?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of gets to our next topic, which is, bringing the cybersecurity and fraud teams together to better understand, the metrics that each team is measuring, and kind of the drivers for those metrics, good or bad, right? And as we mentioned, starting early in the buyer journey and understanding and blocking the bad bots, or the humans with bad intent, whatever the case may be, a bad agentic AI, will take out a lot of the noise and clean up the metrics, as Dan mentioned earlier. That's super helpful, I think. And just trying to categorize the different kinds of costs that you're facing along the way is really important. Those can be infrastructure costs, those can be people resources, those can be fraud or chargeback costs. There's a whole host of things, and just trying to categorize those and build out the business case. One of the things that we're trying to do for our own customers is we've introduced an ROI dashboard that essentially takes the traffic that each of the customers has and lets them populate a number of cost drivers, their own numbers, not a vendor supplied number, so we'll have more credibility, so they can really understand and generate reports for other stakeholders to prove out the ROI of our solution.
I think you touched on an interesting point, and I think I'm looking at the results for the polls. I think from my point of view, the most interesting one, when we ask about how's the organization approaching the emerging threat of Agentic AI, 39% said it's on our radar, but no actions taken yet. I think that's an interesting one. So that's why I'm glad that you are joining this webinar today. Maybe getting a perspective. Again, it depends on your business. Maybe you are in the first line where people maybe see you as a potential attack victim, or maybe not. So that's why it's good to learn and to see what can we do. Because I think that the challenge for many companies is they see all the buzzwords, but they don't know where to start. I mean, there's all these tools, all these scary announcements, maybe playing around a little bit, but it's not easy to start somewhere. Maybe then, I don't know if you have a big organization, but is there something which you would recommend for maybe a mid-sized company, maybe how to get started about looking at this topic? Is there something, or how to get started?
I don't want to quote, but I will share my perspective of how I look at the AI era, I will call it, and how it emerges very fast and rapidly. And also with relation to fraudsters. Usually, everything starts at the developers phase. Developers are the first one to use technology and the new capabilities. Many of us, I will say, are using the AI as an interface to get feedback, to chat with, to help us with things, and that's where the agentic is coming in to start taking actions on our behalf using their models. But when it comes to, okay, so how can I protect using this? What can I do using AI? And it starts as a buzzword. Yes, and everyone wants to do something with this, but okay, what exactly do I do with this? And that's where it becomes the challenge comes in. And in order to know and better understand how to protect against AI and the new era, we need to use it. It's not that we need to become developers, but we need to think like bad people that are wanting to leverage these tools against us. For example, I will give an example. I'm thinking right now. If someone wants to purchase something, let's say using not PayPal, a different one, okay, a different company, they will go to that company and say, okay, instead of me typing the user and password, let's have someone else to type the user and password. Let's say I have a valid user and password, and they detect me as bot. Evade from being a bot as best as you could, and the agentic AI will do that for you instead of clicking very fast or sliding very fast. It will do that slowly. If you need to click on 3 images of bicycles, you know what? Let's click 4 first and then 3. And let's have a few mistakes first before we go further. And that's the mindset that we need to think of, and how others and the agentic AI need to think of, us need to think how agentic can be leveraged for these purposes. And that would be a good way for us to then go back and see, okay, now we need to protect against that, because this is how they use it. And at some point, we will fight AI against AI. And that will be a very interesting era as well.
And I have 2 points for this. One is, and you mentioned before, the fraud teams and the cyber teams. And we know they need to work together. And that's the last poll for today. We just want to check as well, how far are you that these teams are aligned? I mean, aligned doesn't mean they're completely integrated, but at least they have some shared goals or using the same data, same tools, etc. So again, here we just want to see where are you in your organization so far. And I think Dan already mentioned an interesting sentence, and it goes back to our last slide, where we're talking about exposing cyber fraud in the area of AI. Again, area of AI. And you mentioned already maybe the next level, AI against AI, but again, we are still in this next phase of area of AI. And again, that's an interesting book from DataDome. And sometimes it's good to take a moment and diving into more details. Again, please feel free to scan a QR code to learn more here. And when we go back to the poll, we can see 62% said some collaboration, separate tools. I feel that's the kind of first step. Organizations see the need, so they talk to each other, say potentially aligning way forward, but still different responsibilities, different teams, different goals, different KPIs, different data, and it's what we can see from our side as well. Talking to many companies on the merchant side, on the fintech or banking side, that's still the reality for a lot of companies. And when we prepared for this webinar, we also talked about talking to each other and understanding each other means we need to talk about the same things. And we touched about the word taxonomy. So because often the fraud teams have a different perspective on a process or on certain touch points in comparison to a cyber team. Maybe Dan can share you some perspective about, do we talk the same language, or do we need to align our language to really running in the same direction as a fraud and as a cyber team?
And I actually have that in my comments here on my notebook. And I'm saying also the results of the poll. There are different languages. Cybersecurity is talking in one language. Fraud and risk teams are talking a different language. And as hard as it sounds, they don't meet when they talk to each other. And it's hard for the security person to look at how fraud team is looking at things and vice versa. Risk and fraud teams are looking, okay, conversion rates and what is the impact we will have for implementing everything. They just don't want to impact legitimate customers. Cybersecurity folks, hey, we want to stop as much as possible out there, and the impact is not as important as the risk team is seeing things. And when there is a collaboration or conversation, it comes to a challenge. What is the common language we can talk between us? Data instrumentation that will flow all the way from the top of the funnel to the bottom. That's super important for that common language first. And second is to be open with understanding that they look at things differently and we also need to listen to both sides, and it's relevant for both areas. And I've made that mistake as well, myself. And once I started realizing, okay, I need to adjust as well, and they adjust at the same time I adjust, they come to the table differently, and it's becoming a very good collaboration if we collaborate and understand that we speak different languages and trying to find that common language that we can agree upon and use it for the measure of success of what we do. And I learned a lot from them, and I believe that they also learned some from the security side, and it's mutual. The better we collaborate, the better results we do for the company.
Thanks,
Yeah, I
Dan.
would just say that fraudsters don't operate in silos, and neither should cybersecurity and fraud teams, right? And it's a little bit of a challenge. It's encouraging to see the poll results here that there's some collaboration that's happening. There are different metrics now, but what's needed is a very holistic approach, right, from start to finish. And that's going to help businesses become more secure at every step of the user journey. Right now, I think the research for analysts shows that relatively few cyber and fraud teams, are integrated under one leader. But over the next 3 years, that number is supposed to jump dramatically from say 5% today up to about 25% in 3 years. So there's a lot of progress that's being made there. And again, it's all to improve the security posture, reduce fraud at all of these businesses. And I would say it's not only the teams, it's also the tooling as well, right? There's a ton of tools out there, and everybody's got constrained budgets. So there's some consolidation that needs to happen. And DataDome is trying to make that happen with our own set of solutions.